Hello and welcome to part 2 of section 4 video for Algebra 2. This is Unit 2, so Unit 2, Section 4, Part 2. Okay, and what I want to do is just kind of jump right in and continue what we were doing, and we want to write the equation of a line that passes through the points in the table. So remember, the first thing that we need is we need a slope m. So let me zoom in here real quick, and I'm going to say... All right, we need to find out what m is, okay? And that's, remember, we use the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And, you know, basically what we want to do, I'm just going to choose 2 points here. Okay, I'm going to choose -1, and 1, 4. So I've got the points -1, -1, and then 1, 4, okay? I'm going to call this x sub 1, y sub 1, call this x sub 2, y sub 2, all right? So if I wanted to find my slope, m, that's just going to be 4 minus -1 divided by 1 minus -1, which is going to give me 4 plus 1 over 1 plus 1, which is going to give me 5 over 2. Okay, so my slope, m, is equal to 5 halves, okay? I'm going to go ahead and use this point as my point to help me write the equation of that line. So x sub 1 is equal to -1, and y sub 1 is equal to -1. Okay, so I'm going to use these values, all right, and I'm going to use the equation, point slope form, y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1, okay? And so I'm going to plug these values in. I've got y minus -1 is equal to 5 halves times x minus -1, okay? So as a result, I get y plus 1 is equal to 5 halves times x plus 1. So I'm going to distribute my 5 halves here, okay? And so we get y plus 1 is equal to 5 halves x plus 5 halves. Okay, and then I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, and that's going to give me, move it over here, y is equal to 5 halves x plus 5 halves minus 2 halves. Okay, I went ahead and just gave it a common denominator, 5 halves minus 1, 5 halves minus 2 halves, and so then I have the equation y is equal to 5 halves x, and then this is plus 3 halves, all right? And that's what we've got. That's our equation, all right? So, you know, even though you're not given exactly, you know, 2 points, you can choose any 2 points on here to help you write the equation of that line, okay? But it does involve some algebra here, all right? So then it says that we want to write the equation of the line that passes through the points in the table. Now, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to calculate the slope, and I'm just going to use the values in the table. And what I notice is, let's go ahead and just do these points here. I'm just going to use these points to calculate my slope, and so my change in x is a value of, what is that, positive 12, and then my change in y is negative 2, okay? So the different, you know, to go from -4 to 8, I have to add 12. To go from 1 to -1, I'd have to subtract 2. So my slope, you know, for this line is -2 over 12. And so my slope is then equal to just -1/6. Okay? So as a result, okay, we need to figure out which one of these has a slope of -1/6. And so I'm going to cross out all the other ones that don't have it. Okay? And so we've got those. And you know, what I'm going to do here is kind of figure out, you know, use the, you know, let me write this out. Slope is -1/6. You know, if we use y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1, okay, let's take a look and see what we can get out of this. Now, what this shows me here is that I have the point 4 or negative 4, 1, okay? So do I have, and I have that value here, okay? And what this says is that x is equal to negative 4 and y is equal to 1. Okay, and I have that point right here, okay? And that's just a recognition thing. That's just me looking at that equation and then trying to figure out what I've got. So I know that this is a point on the graph, okay? And let's see if I have the point x is negative 10 and y equals 2, and that point works as well. Okay, same thing here. Okay, y was 2 and x was negative 10. So that equation also works. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of those equations and I'm going to solve it for y and put it in a slope-intercept form and see which one of these we get. I'm going to use this equation here because my numbers are a little bit smaller and they're a little bit easier to work with. So I've got y minus 1 is equal to negative 1/6 times x plus 4. So if I distribute that negative 1/6, I get negative 1/6 x and then minus negative 4/6, okay? And that's still y minus 1. Now if I add 1 to both sides, okay, that's going to give me y is equal to negative 1/6 x, and then minus 4/6 plus 6/6. Okay, if I add 1, and I want a common denominator of 6, it's just 6 over 6. So this is going to give me y equals negative 1/6 x. Negative 4/6 plus 6/6 is going to give me, what is that, plus 2/6? Okay, so that's plus a third. Okay, so we can simplify that even further and say y is equal to negative 1/6 x plus 1/3. Okay, and that's what we've got. Okay, so there is our answer for that. All right, on the next one, okay, you know, and I'm going to go through this. You know, it wants us to do the same thing. Okay, write the equation, a line that passes through the points. What we've been doing is we've been using point-slope form, but there is another method. Okay, there's method 2 to this. And so, you know, identify your points, use your slope formula, and then it says use one of the given points and the one of the given points in the slope to find the y-intercept. Okay, and so we're going to use the slope-intercept form equation to help us with that. So let's go ahead and do it for this problem here. You know, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to use these points, 5, 4, and negative 5, 4. I'm going to call this x1, y1, x2, and y2. Okay, so I'm going to apply that slope formula. So x1, y1 is the point 5, 4. So I'm going to do 5, comma 4. And then the x2, y2 is negative 5, 2. So that's negative 5 and then 2. Okay, and if we apply the slope formula, okay, and let's go ahead and do that, we're just going to get, what do we got? 2 minus 4 over 5 minus negative 5. I'm sorry, negative 5 minus 5. Negative 5 minus 5. So this gives us a value of 2 minus 4 is negative 2 over negative 10. So that equals a positive 1/5, okay? And so, you know, that's what my slope is, okay? And so I'm gonna write that up here. I got my slope is 1/5, okay? My x value, and it doesn't matter which point we choose, but I'm just gonna go ahead and choose, you know, this value right here, 5, 4. And so my slope is 1/5. I'm gonna say that x is equal to 5 and that y is equal to 4. Okay, and these are the points I'm going to use to plug into the formula y equals mx plus b. Okay, so use the given points to find the y-intercept. So watch what I do here. Okay, I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. Okay, and I'm going to plug in 4 for y. So I get 4 is equal to 1/5 times x. Okay, m was 1/5. X is 5. So I'm going to multiply this by 5. Okay, 5 over 1, and then plus b. So when I do this, I've got 4 equals. So I've got 4 equals. If I do 1/5 times 5 over 1, then my 5's divide out, and you're just left with 1. Okay, So you get 1 plus b, and then we subtract 1 from both sides, and we get that b is equal to 3, okay? So now that I have a slope and a y-intercept, I can just write my equation, okay? And I can just write this as y is equal to 1/5 x plus 3. Now, I want you to see how much work that took. Okay, it really didn't take a whole lot of work, whereas the other method took a lot of work. Now, maybe you see it this way, and it's very easy for you, or maybe you see it this way, much easier, and it's easy for you. Guys, I don't really care what you do. I just want you to be able to write the equation of a line. Okay, you do need to know how to get point-slope form, but this is just another method on how to write the equation of a line. Okay, so let's do the same thing over here. Okay, let's do this part again. I'm going to first identify my point as x1, y1, x2, y2, and my slope m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so my slope m is equal to, and let's do the math here, we got 3 minus 2 divided by 6 minus negative 1. And so 3 minus 2 is going to give me 1, and then 6 plus 1 is going to give me 7. So my slope is 1/7, okay? And let's go ahead and just use, so I'm going to say my slope is 1/7, and then let's use the x value of negative 1 and a y value of 2, okay? So then let's plug that into y equals mx plus b. Y is equal to mx plus b. So y value is 2. My slope is 1/7. X value is negative 1. And then add b, okay? So I'm just plugging in my values, 2 for y, 1/7 for x, and then negative 1 for x. So then I get this. I get 2 is equal to negative 1/7. Negative 1 times 1/7 is 1/7. And then plus b, okay? So now I'm going to add 1/7 to both sides. So b is equal to 2 over 1 plus 1/7. Okay, now I need a common denominator, so I'm going to multiply both of these numerators by 7 and by 7. Numerator and denominator by 7 and 7. So then I get that b is equal to 14/7 plus 1/7. So my value for b is going to be 15/7. Okay, and that's my y-intercept. So I have a slope, okay, I have a y-intercept, and I'm going to write the equation of my line. And my equation is going to be y is equal to 1/7 x plus 15/7. Okay, and that's what we've got. All right, so it is a little bit of work, a little bit of algebra, but you know, it kind of depends on which method you prefer. Okay, again, I don't really care. Now, on this next page, up here, you know, it says write the equation of the line, you know, through those points. And so, and what we notice is that, you know, either method, okay, if you use point-slope form, you know, and you go through all this, you end up with the same answer in the end, okay? If you use, you know, slope-intercept form to just solve for b, then you know, you end up getting the same thing. So it doesn't matter which one you do, just want to make sure that you're, you know, being able to do either method and get the same answer. All right, so now this person looks really happy. Okay, they look like they're having a great time. So the value of Julia's car decreases at a rate of $175 per year. After 3 years, her car is worth $1,850. Write a linear function to model the scenario. So here's the thing. When you say that the value of your car decreases, okay, this means it gets smaller. So this decreases at a rate of $175 per year. This is your slope. Okay? So I know that my value for m is equal to negative $175. Okay? Now, after 3 years, her car is worth $1,850. Now, what that gives me is that x value, okay, is equal to 3, and your y value is equal to 1,850, okay? So what I want to do is I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. That's kind of the method that I prefer to use typically. So, using y equals mx plus b, my y value is 1,850. My slope is negative 175, and the x value is 3, okay? And then plus b. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, do the arithmetic here and figure out what I've got. So the first I've got to do is 175 times 3. And that's going to give me a value of negative $525 plus b. And then I get 1,850. So then if I add $525 to both sides, okay, so 525 plus 1,850, then I get 2,375 is equal to my y-intercept. So I have my y-intercept, I have my slope, so then I'm going to get y equals negative 175x plus 2,375, okay? And this is just my linear function to model the scenario. Now, here's the thing. I kind of want to show you guys, how did I get this? Now, how did I figure out what my x value was and my y value was? Well, if I draw a graph here, and you think of the value of a car, then my x-axis is years, and my y value is my worth. How much is the car worth? Okay, and that's kind of how I figured that out, is because my slope, the change in y over the change in x, was $175, negative $175 per year, okay? So you had cost over year. So that's your y value was cost over year, okay? So then, okay, if you have a function over here where it says if the function g of x represents negative $125 x plus 2,200 is the model of another car's value over time. So it says which car is worth more after 2 years. So let me find g of 2 here, okay? And that just means I'm going to take negative 125 times 2 and then plus 2,200. So if I do that arithmetic, this is going to give me negative 250, okay, plus 2,200. And if I do 2,200 minus 250, then let me do the math here real quick. So 2,200 minus 250 is going to give me a value of 1,950, okay, after 2 years. All right. Let's take a look at the other car, okay, and let's find y of 2. And so if I do negative 175 times 2 plus 2,375, so negative 175 times 2 is going to give me negative 352. Wait a minute. 175 times 2 is negative 350. Okay, and then plus 2,375. So minus. And that's going to give me a value of $2,025, okay, after 2 years. So the car that Julia drove, okay, I would say that Julia's car has a better value. Julia's car has a better value after 2 years. Okay? All right. Okay, on this one, okay, let's take a look at this problem. It says after 2 hours, there are 1,400 milliliters of fluid remaining in a patient's IV. The fluid drips at a rate of 300 milliliters per hour. Let X be the time that passed in hours and Y the amount of fluid left in the IV in milliliters. Write a linear function that models the scenario. Okay, so what I want to do is kind of use this idea, because right here it tells me the slope. It gives me a rate. When it says rate, and it gives me a number of milliliters per hour, then that's going to help me, okay? So I've got change in y over the change in x. And so when I think about this, I've got 300 milliliters per hour, okay? So if I draw a graph here, then I've got milliliters and I've got hours down here, okay? Now, we want to know how much fluid, okay, is left in the IV, okay? So this is actually going to be a negative slope because when we think about fluid leaving an IV, okay, it's a bag of fluid. It's got a certain volume in there, and then it leaves at 300 milliliters per hour. And so when it does that, you know, the amount of water or the amount of IV is going down, okay? And so let's take a look here, and it says that the slope of the line, m, is equal to negative 300, okay, milliliters per hour, okay? I have an x value of 2 hours and a y value of 1,400 milliliters of fluid, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to help me figure out what the equation of my line is. So I'm going to use y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to substitute 1,400 in for y. I'm going to substitute negative 300 in for m, and then 2 for x, and then plus b. So I've got 1,400 is equal to negative 600 plus b. So if I add 600 to both sides, okay, then I get that my value for b is equal to 2,000, okay, and that's 2,000 milliliters, all right? So I know what my y-intercept is 2,000 milliliters, okay? So my linear function is y is equal to negative 300 x plus 2,000. And that is a function that models this situation, okay? All right, ooh, this is really fun. Renting rollerblades costs a flat fee plus an additional charge per hour. So it costs $15.50 to rent rollerblades for 2 hours, and then renting the skates for 7 hours costs $28. Okay, so I want to write a linear function to model this scenario. So what I've got, okay, is I've got cost and hours, okay? So I've got hours is my x and cost is my y, all right? And that's going to look something like that. So after 2 hours, so if we make a table here, hours and then cost, after 2 hours, it's going to cost me $15.50, okay? So $15.50. Okay, and then after 7 hours, it's going to give me a cost of 28. So what I need to do is calculate my slope, m. So to go from $15.50 to $28, let's do 28 minus 15.50, and this gives me a value of 12.5. And then the hours increased by 5. Okay, so my slope, m, is equal to 12.5 over 5. All right, and let me go ahead and just figure out what that is if we simplify that. Okay, and this is going to simplify down to 2.5. Okay, and this is your cost per hour. Cost per hour. Okay, that's your slope. All right, but we have to figure out what the flat fee is. Okay, we have to figure out what you know, how much it would cost just generically. So what I want to do is I'm going to use the point here of 2 and then 15.50. So m is equal to 2.5. I'm going to say that x is equal to 2 and y is equal to 15.5. Okay, and I'm going to plug that into y equals mx plus b. So I've got 15.5 is equal to 2.5 times 2 plus b. All right, so if I've got 15.5 is equal to 2.5 times 2, that's going to give me 5 plus b, and then I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. So I end up getting that b is a value of 10.5, okay? And that's what we've got. So I have my slope, which is 2.5, and my y-intercept, which is 10.5. So my equation, y equals 2.5x plus 10.5. And that is an equation that models the situation. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a lot of work and it's a lot of algebra and stuff like that, but you know, just keep at it, and we'll get better. So talk to you later. See you in a bit. Bye.